Simulating motion picture film has become a kind of obsession for me over the last few years. The look and feel of real motion picture film is, in my opinion, absolutely breathtaking, and I found that there's something so satisfying about experimenting with new techniques and tools to get closer to the perfect emulation. Simulating film obviously isn't easy and it's never going to be perfect, but DaVinci Resolve provides an amazing suite of tools for doing just that. So today, I'm going to show you 2 easy ways to simulate realistic motion picture film. Using power grades for color grading in Resolve is going to be the easiest and most consistent way of working with any emulation. Firstly, I'll show you my own updated film power grade, which I've been working on over the last year or so, and then I'll show you an easy way to build a power grade for yourself in DaVinci Resolve using the free tools that are available. If you like the look of my own power grade, it's now available on my website and you can pick this up for a small fee. Over the last 12 months, I've learned a lot more about film and color in general, and so I'm really excited to be able to share this new and improved power grade. The pack comes with detailed instructions on how to import and apply the power grade correctly, along with useful tips and tricks on how to use it to get the most realistic film look. You'll need to start by importing the power grade and the LUT included in the download file into DaVinci. You can then apply the power grade by right-clicking on the power grade icon in the gallery section of the color tab and clicking Apply Grade. The node tree will appear on the right hand side and the image will look a little odd at first, but after a few minor tweaks you'll be able to get the look you're after. The amazing thing about using a power grade is that it's completely customizable, and whilst I've built in a number of looks, you can also play around with the different nodes to build your own unique look and save these for future use. The first node is a color space transform that converts the footage from its original color space to the Cineon film log space. You'll need to input the correct color space for your camera. Unless you're shooting in log, it will likely be sRGB. This footage is from the GX80, which is sRGB, so I'll leave that there. The next node is the LUT, which serves as the foundation of the grade, managing highlight roll-off, color tone, skin tones, luminance, and subtractive color saturation. You'll need to find the KeyChrome LUT that you've imported from the download file in the LUT section of DaVinci and apply it to the LUT node of the power grade. If you like the look of a vignette, you can apply that node, and the next node is a film tone curve, which adds contrast to the image. If you're looking for a really contrasty film look, then you can activate this or even amend the curve to change the contrast levels. Personally, I prefer a lower contrast look, so most of the contrast I add comes from the exposure correction, which I'll do in the next node. Here you can use the lift, gamma and gain wheels to correct the exposure of your image. Exposure is probably the most important step, so it's crucial that you get this right. As a general rule, for a balanced image, I'd recommend referring to the waveforms in the bottom right and ensuring nothing is being crushed or clipped. My exposure on this specific clip is generally pretty good, but I'll bring down the gain slightly as well as the lift, and then I'll raise the gamma level slightly to correct the contrast. Again, this is just a general rule and you can change your approach based on specific looks you're going for. I like film images that are slightly darker overall, so I'll also bring down the global wheel to achieve this look. By this point you might already be happy with the look that the LUT and your exposure corrections have created, but if you're wanting to apply some added character to your image or work in some more color separation, then you can do this in the look section. There are 6 default looks to choose from, but again, these are completely customizable. Magenta adds a slightly warm red cast. As the name suggests, the green node adds a green cast, a warm node, a warmer node, a cold node, and a colder node. For this particular image, I'm going to choose the cold node because it adds some nice color contrast between the background of the image and the foreground. The white balance node is next, and this is where you can make any finishing touches to the color in the image using the temp and tint slider above the wheels. Here I'll warm up the image a little bit more and also add in a bit more green to counteract the overly red hue that's appearing in the image. The saturation node adds a small amount of general saturation since there's a lot of subtractive saturation already built into the LUT, but you can also add or subtract some from the color boost section in the bottom left and the saturation slider in the middle. The edge node is activated by default since this takes off some of the digital sharpness created in digital cameras and also zones in on the crunchy edges in an image that can become quite distracting. The sharpness node is also applied, and you can amend this by going into the sharpness bar and either reducing or increasing the amount. If you're using the paid version of DaVinci, you could add a separate node here and apply Resolve's own halation effect, but for this node I've created a halation effect using the free tools. I've also found that halation is most realistic when applied in very small amounts. You can amend this by going into the curve section of the node and pulling the slider to the left. Less is definitely more in this regard. The look is now more or less complete. If you're using the studio version of Resolve, you can add the grain effect to the last node. If not, then you'll need to apply a grain overlay on the timeline. There's lots of free options available, and I'll leave a few links in the description box below. You can of course go back to any node and make changes to perfect your image, but I'm happy with the way this looks, and now I'll show you a before and after. Now let's use this on some log footage. Here's some footage from my favourite camera of all time, the original BMP-CC. It's a camera I talk about a lot on this channel. I'll apply the power grade in the same way by right clicking and selecting apply power grade. The first and most important thing to do is to select the correct input color space and input gamma on the color space transform node. This was shot on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, so I'll select that here, and then I'll apply the LUT to the power grade. I'll also apply a vignette, and I'll correct my exposure node to ensure I'm maximizing the dynamic range of the image. And I'm happy with that. Again, by this point I'm pretty happy with the look already, but I'll also check out the look section to see if I can enhance the image further. I'll test the different nodes until I find one that I'm happy with, and then I'll finalize my white balance. For this specific shot I really like the magenta look, so I'll apply that node and then I'll amend my white balance just to finalize the look. The last thing to do is to apply the halation node, and this is now complete. And here's a before and after. Before we jump into the second film emulation technique, I want to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, which is Audiio. Sound is such an important and often overlooked aspect of filmmaking, and so it's crucial to have a reliable place to be able to source unique music. Audiio is a royalty-free music and sound effects platform that puts a lot of focus on delivering a really well curated pool of music to fit any personal or professional project. The platform's layout is really intuitive, and the advanced search features makes it super easy to discover the right sounds for you. Audiio also provides an extensive library of sound effects, and I'll be honest, I really didn't expect to utilize this as much as I have. The sounds are all really clean, and they're perfect for taking the sound design aspect of your project to the next level. The music in this video has been provided by Audiio, and they're offering 70% off your first year subscription, which currently makes this incredibly affordable. So click the link in the description box below and use the code OliverKeys if you want to take advantage of this offer while it lasts. So in this second technique, I'm going to show you an easy way to build a film look for yourself just using the free tools in DaVinci Resolve. You'll want to start by creating 8 serial nodes in the color tab and label them in the same way as I do. CST, LUT, exposure, white balance, saturation, edge, halation, and sharpening. You need to open the effects tab and add a color space transform to the CST node. For this effect we're going to use the Arri Log C color space, so we'll select the Arri Wide Gamut 3 color space and the Arri Log C3 output gamma. If you're shooting in log, then remember to amend the input color space and gamma to the correct ones for your camera. For the LUT node, we're going to apply the free Arri LUT that's already in DaVinci Resolve by default, and then we'll correct our exposure in the exposure node. This is a great starting point for any look regardless of whether you're emulating film or not, but there are a few more simple things we can do to make this more filmic. In the next node we can correct the white balance using the temp and tint sliders, but we can start to add a bit of colour tone to the image by playing around with the offset and gain wheels. There's no exact science to this, it's really a case of playing around until you find a look that you want. I like the look of mine there. We can then move on to the saturation node, and rather than just use the color boost tool here alongside the saturation slider, we can start to add in some more subtractive color using a really simple technique. This is going to mimic filmic saturation much more closely because it makes the color much more dense in the process. You need to right click on the node and change the color space to HSV. You then need to right click again and remove channels 1 and 2. Now, when you increase the gain wheel, you'll notice the waveforms in the bottom right move downwards instead of upwards. This is the colours becoming deeper as more saturation is introduced. Again, it's better to keep this subtle, especially with 8-bit footage, so I'll leave mine around about there. This is of course a very basic method, and there are much more intricate techniques that can be used, but this adds a nice element to the image. For the edge node, we're going to go into the effects tab and apply a Gaussian blur. This will take off some of the sharp edges produced by the digital sensor and soften up the image slightly. When you first apply it, the effect's going to be way too strong, so you need to bring down both the horizontal and vertical strength, and then amend the global blend until you're happy. You can zoom into the image to get a better idea of how this is working a little better. I'm happy with that, and now I'll move on to the halation. Again, if you have the paid version of Resolve, then you can just add halation from the effects panel, but if not, then you'll need to right click on the node and change the composite mode to screen. You then need to go to the blur section and pull the radius all the way to the top. Then go to the color wheels and pull the gain towards the warmer end of the spectrum. Now you need to navigate to the curve panel and place a point in just below the middle and drag it down towards the bottom right. You can play around with the positioning of this, but as you can see, it generates an halation-like effect in the highlights of the image. In the final node, you can apply some sharpening if needed. You can go to the sharpening area and bring down the radius until you're happy. It's important to bear in mind here that this applies global sharpening, so it's very easy to go overboard. I like to keep it around 0.48 since this has a very subtle effect. And that's the effect done. So I hope this was useful. If you've got your own film emulation workflow, then let me know in the comments section below, and I'll see you in the next one.